In Zaria, where the harmattan wind cuts like a razor and the sun can break the strongest will, recruits still whisper a name. They say it with a mix of fear and deep respect. They don't say it loudly, they don't joke about it. They just say, "That instructor." He was posted to the training grounds years ago, but his reputation, like a shadow, arrived long before he did. The first morning he stepped onto the parade ground, the camp was already buzzing with nervous energy. Boots were half-laced, berets sat crooked, voices trembled. His uniform was simple, perfectly pressed, with no medals or fancy decorations. But his eyes, they were what stopped everyone. Cold, intensely focused, searching for any hint of weakness. He didn't shout, not at first. That silence was somehow worse than any yell. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, almost dangerously gentle. "From today," he said, "you will forget who you were before you came here." And in that moment, every single recruit knew their life had just been fundamentally altered. He believed pain was the greatest teacher, if you were late by even 1 second. Down for push-ups, a speck of dust on your rifle. Down. Your voice was weak during parade chants. Down. Even the strongest, most physically imposing recruits learned very quickly that sheer muscle would not save them from his discipline. He punished laziness, arrogance, and excuses with the same unwavering standard. Many other instructors would scream insults, trying to break you with words. He never needed to. His look of quiet disappointment was more crushing than any verbal abuse. Recruits ran until their lungs felt like they were on fire. They crawled on rough terrain until their elbows and knees were raw and bleeding. And they stood at attention under the brutal Zaria sun until sweat soaked the red sand beneath their boots. When a recruit would eventually fall from exhaustion, he didn't rush over to help them up. He would stand back, watching, letting the moment hang in the air. "Get up," he would say, his voice flat. And somehow, through sheer will or fear, they always did. They found a strength they never knew they possessed. There was a night exercise that became the stuff of legend, a story passed down from one generation of recruits to the next. The rain came down in relentless sheets, turning the entire training field into a thick, unforgiving swamp of mud. The recruits were exhausted, starving, and shivering uncontrollably in the cold. One by one, some began to cry quietly in the darkness, their spirits finally cracking. A few even started whispering about quitting, about giving up right then and there. The instructor walked among them, his heavy boots squelching in the mud. He moved slowly, a phantom in the storm. "This," he said, his voice cutting through the sound of the rain, "is where soldiers are born. Not in comfort, not in praise, but here, in the mud and the misery." Just then, one recruit collapsed completely, his body giving out. The others tensed, expecting a barrage of shouting. Instead, the instructor knelt beside the fallen man for a moment, checked his breathing, and then stood up. "Carry him," he ordered the squad. A soldier never leaves his own behind. That night, they learned a lesson far more profound than any drill or marching order. They learned about brotherhood. Weeks later, a rumor began to circulate that shocked everyone who heard it. Years before he became an instructor, he had been a commander in the field. During a brutal ambush, he lost men under his command. Young soldiers, good soldiers. Some of them had failed simple drills during training, ignored the small details that he now relentlessly enforced. From that day forward, he made a solemn vow. No recruit under his watch would ever be unprepared for the harsh reality of war. His toughness wasn't cruelty. It wasn't born from hatred. It was a shield. It was protection forged in the fire of his own loss. Finally, graduation day arrived, the passing out parade. The same man who had once inspired such paralyzing fear now stood quietly at the edge of the field, almost blending into the background. The new soldiers marched with a crisp confidence they hadn't known they could ever possess. Boots struck the ground as one unified sound. Chests were pushed out, heads were held high. As they marched past him, their eyes met his, and he gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. That single nod meant more to them than any medal or certificate. Later that day, one of the new soldiers, bolder than the rest, finally gathered the courage to approach him. "Sir," the young man said, "you were too hard on us." The instructor looked at him, and for the first time, the coldness in his eyes seemed to soften, just for a second. He replied softly, "If I was hard, it is because the enemy will be harder." Today, the soldiers trained under him serve with distinction across Nigeria and in peacekeeping missions around the world. In the heat of battle, in the chaos of a crisis, in moments of crippling fear, they remember Zaria. They remember the sun, the pain, the punishing silence, and the instructor who simply refused to let them fail. And whenever a young soldier straightens his back in the face of danger, holds his ground, and survives one more day, the legend of the toughest drill instructor in Zaria lives on. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more.